Program Director, His Excellency President Gedleyixa Jacob Zuma, Venerable Mama Kotane, and the esteemed Kotane family, Honorable Chief Justice Mogoeng and other justices here present, Speaker of Parliament and Chair of the Chairperson of the NCOP, Venerable members of the clergy here present, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honorable Premier of the Northwest Province and other premiers of the country, MECs, councillors here present, Mahosi le Mahosana, a otlhe a rona mo bokone bophirima le Afrika Borwa ka kakaretso, stalwarts and veterans of our struggle and freedom for democracy, ANC Women's League and all our mothers, sisters, and daughters, ANC Youth League, SASCO, and all other youth formations, South African Communist Party, COSATU, and other worker formations, members of the diplomatic corps, and the state-owned entities and representatives of the other sectors of society. Esteemed citizens of Bokone Bophirima and all protocol observed. Before I speak, I just want to indicate that a foundation called the Moses Kotane Foundation has been formed. And this foundation intends to continue to promote the legacy of Moses Kotane. First of all, let me enormously thank the families of Malume Kotane and JB Max for honoring me by extending this extraordinary opportunity to say a few words about these giants of our struggle for freedom and democracy. As everybody knows, Diaparangkwe, Re Malume Kotane, and Re Uncle JB Max originate from the Northwest Province and the future, hopefully, Moses Kotane Province. These legendary leaders of our people form part of the very core of the historical and exemplary leadership, such as Presidents Oliver Tambo, Chief Albert Lituli, and others in the fight against the much hated fascist apartheid. I first met Malume Kotane and Uncle JB in exile. My origins, by the way, are Mangaung, Free State, the cradle of the ANC. After returning from Cuba during the Wangi operations, we were placed at the ANC main camp in Kongwa, Tanzania. After a while there, I was appointed the ANC Deputy Chief Representative in East Africa, responsible for administration, which allowed me to handle the finances of the organization in East Africa. At that time, Malume Kotane was the Treasurer General of the ANC. Because Malume Kotane was based in Morogoro, Tanzania, away from the government and business center, I served as his runner and implementer in Dar es Salaam. Later, after Malume fell ill, Uncle JB took over as the Treasurer General of the ANC, so I also worked alongside him. Both Malume Kotane and Uncle JB left for exile at the request of the Deputy President General of the ANC, Oliver Reginald Tambo, to help address the dire financial resources and others that the organization was faced with. At that time, the movement had just formed Umkhonto weSizwe, MK, the militant wing of the African National Congress. Proper military training and other forms of training and maintenance were necessary to achieve both combat readiness for the fighters. All the Western countries, although they had often vociferously expressed their support for the long-suffering people of South Africa from the colonial apartheid, they were not prepared to help materially. Only Western NGOs genuinely assisted, but that assistance was not enough. Malume and Uncle JB, internationalists of the first order, offered accessibility to the Soviet Union and other socialist countries. When MK detachment returned from training in the USSR and other socialist countries, African countries, and Cuba, they were confronted with very difficult conditions. It is no exaggeration to state that all kinds of help, food, clothing, transportation, and medical equipment and scholarships, etc., flowed in a big way from the Soviet Union and other socialist countries. For that matter, the people of South Africa shall forever be grateful to Russia and other socialist countries. Malume Kotane was a very rigid but principled granddad. And by the way, I must say that at the time when I was MK member of the Lituli detachment, his son, Joe Kotane, we were together there. So, and we became friends then. But Principal Grantlad, who hardly joked nor easily laughed, at best, he smiled wryly. He also talked very little. In my language, Ribona ilirre o thata and very serious. In other words, he was not easily approachable, and yet he was very generous, kind, and disciplined. He was very fearless in taking a decision. One time, one of our comrades in the camp ran out of shoes, which was always the case most of the time, or some clothes of some sort. So he approached Malume for help. Without questioning him, he gave him the money to buy good new shoes. The only condition was the comrade must bring a receipt with him. After looking at the receipt, Malume found out that the comrade had indeed bought shoes, but cheap ones. Malume looked at him and said, "Muna, I gave you money to buy shoes. Take this money and go and buy very good shoes, because I don't want that within a couple of months you come back to me and say you want money for shoes." So the comrade had to go and buy some very good shoes. On the contrary, I'll speak a little bit also about Malume, Uncle JB. Uncle JB was a diplomat and very likely to make a joke. When Malume fell ill and was sent to Moscow for treatment, Uncle JB took over as Treasurer General of the ANC. So that meant I also had to work around Uncle JB. Uncle JB, when approached for assistance by the cadres, was most likely to say, "Go and see Wesi." The problem is that when the comrade comes to me, I have to listen and ask him why he must motivate why money should be given for shoes. Then the comrade will look at me when I say that and say, "But comrade, this is not your money. It is the money of the ANC. Uncle JB said you must give me money." I said, "But I can't just give money without getting permission from Uncle JB." And as a result, I often had difficulty with the comrades. They thought I was arrogant and proud. But that was not the case. I was simply following the regulations. Uncle JB would also say to me, "My son," that's how he liked to call me, "My son, when people come to see you and they say they want some money, put your foot down. It does not matter whether that somebody is the member of the National Executive or not. Just put your foot down." And I did that. And as a result, I often have to run from certain aggressive comrades because they thought I was get it. And by the way, some of them called me schoolboy because I was so tiny. And following the Shabelle massacres of 1960 and the subsequent declaration of the state of emergency by the colonial apartheid regime, it became crystal clear that the need had arisen to relook at the current policy of the African National Congress vis-à-vis the armed struggle. To do that, Chief Luthuli, President General of the ANC's buy-in was necessary. However, it was tough to convince him. Madiba and Resi Sulu approached Chief Luthuli, but they couldn't get anywhere. In the end, they had to approach Malume Kotane. And of course, Malume Kotane didn't just, because he was approached by Madiba and Resi Sulu, immediately accepted that. They had to convince him because he had to go and convince Chief Albert Luthuli. And in the end, when he was satisfied, he went and talked to Chief Albert Luthuli. And Chief Albert Luthuli, after some discourse, finally said, "You know, it is because it is you, Moses Kotane, that I will accede to this. because I'm not sure whether the timing is appropriate, etc. Because as everybody knows, Chief Albert Tutu was a man of peace. So it was hard for him to take very hard decisions. So on the 16th of December 1961, Umkhonto Wesizwe was formed. And around the first half of 1962, Comrade Mandela had to go outside for military training. I must say that I've always considered myself lucky. Some of my friends, but why do you think you are lucky? I said, it's because some of the things that happened to me, they are inexplainable. Because when we went to Cuba, ANC didn't have money. We had to travel by road to get the plane in Cairo. That's what the Cubans said. We can only provide the plane from Cairo to Cuba. Oh, okay, sorry. Thanks, Your Excellency. So as we traveled through Africa, it took us a couple of months to get to Cairo because we didn't have money. But when we when we were in Dar es Salaam, before we left, Tennyson McEwen, who was then the chief representative, gave us a letter and said, this letter, you must give it to the Ghanaian ambassador in Khartoum. And that's what we did. And for the first time when we got there, we were well received. But I think, then the ambassador put us in a very great hotel, 5-star hotel. Now, it was for the first time for me in a 5-star hotel. But what is interesting is that when we entered that hotel, within 30 minutes, we meet with Madiba and Oliver Tambo and Robert Gesher. So we were excited we were to spend the next 10 days with them. Because at that time, Madiba had been invited by the Sudanese president, but also at the same time, he was to attend the PAFMEXA conference in Addis Ababa. So, but when he left, he said to us, he said, young man, I'm going back to South Africa to fight to liberate this country. But what I want you to do, go to Cuba and elsewhere and study. Because I'm going to fight to liberate South Africa. But make sure that after doing what the ANC say you must do after, then study, because you are going to have to govern South Africa. But the problem is that by the time we arrived in South Africa, the hairs were beginning to get white, and we were told that because of age, you don't qualify. You see. You know, there is a lot that I can say because I lived very closely with both Malume Kotane in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, but also in Moscow. Malume spent 10 years of his life in Moscow after he got a stroke. Uncle JB spent about 3 years in Moscow because he was ill. What happened is that after Malume left, Uncle JB took over, and then the next thing was, as I was working with Uncle JB, I said, Uncle JB, I'm getting old. Now I must go and finish my studies, which I did not finish in Cuba. Uncle JB said to me, hey, my son, why didn't you tell me this long time ago? Says, there is a scholarship in London. Tell the Secretary General Alfred Nzo to give you that scholarship, arrange for it. I went, but it was given. And by the way, it was given to Cape Zungu. And then I went and reported to Malume. Malume said, no, that's fine. Said, let him apply for you somewhere. I said, I want to go to the GDR. He applied to the GDR, but the GDR said, we can only take you in 6 months' time. And I told Uncle JB, I said, no, I can't wait. He said, look, I'm about to die. I must make sure that you are in school. And then he said to me, I'm going to Moscow next week. When I come back, we'll talk. And indeed, within a week or so, he was back, and then he called me. My son, pack your bags, tell Uncle Secretary General that he must prepare papers for you to go to Moscow. That's what I do. But that was lucky, one of my lucky, because when I went there, I was able to interact again with Malome Kotane. And then a little later, within 2-3 months, Uncle JB also came. He was ill, obviously ill, because Malome used to say, you know, because I can't walk, people think that I'm much sicker than Uncle JB. But he was making a joke. So, but that is not true. Uncle JB's illness are more complicated than mine. You get it? So in any way, it was good for me because I was all there at the time of their passing, both of them. And I was part of the people who buried him in Moscow. I don't want to extend this year because there's a lot to say, but I want to say one thing, because consistently, 3 to 4 days a week, I used to go to the hospital where the old men were. And one thing happened also. When the holidays come, Maloma would ask her, Muna, o batla go ya kae yaanong? Ke re, what do you mean, Maloma? O batla go ya kae? O batla go ya ko Africa, o batla go ya ko England? Well, to tell you the honest fact, I must be honest, I prefer to go to England. And the reason is very simple. We were very poor, people from ANC liberation movement. So when we go to England during the holidays, we were able to get some peace jobs. And I must say that the father of Jill Marcus, the former governor of the bank, was, when I get there, he used to have a restaurant there. He would offer me a job to wash dishes. No, those dishes were sweet because they had money. Because I didn't have money, I could buy a pair or two of trousers and go back to Moscow and live for another year until the next year. And then one more thing, most of us students, we used to, don't tell the Russians, please. We used to nick some food. We used to cook some food at the hostels where we stay for Malome and Uncle JB to eat, because the food in the hospital can be very, very boring. So I don't want to be expelled from school. Thank you.
Thank you, our veteran, Comrade Wesi.